My fiancé disappeared before the wedding. The morning of my wedding, I woke up believing it would be the happiest day of my life. By noon, my fiancé had disappeared. There was no message, no explanation, and no sign that he had ever planned to come back. My name is Emma, and I had been with Daniel for almost 5 years. We met at a friend's birthday party when I accidentally spilled an entire glass of red wine on his white shirt. I expected him to be angry, but he simply looked down at the stain, laughed, and said, "Well, now you have to marry me." At the time, it was only a joke. Years later, when he proposed beside the same restaurant where we first met, he reminded me of those words. "I knew from the beginning," he whispered. I believed him. Daniel was thoughtful, calm, and dependable. He remembered small things, like how I hated pulp and orange juice and how I always became anxious before important events. Whenever I worried about the future, he would hold my hand and promise that we would face everything together. Our wedding was planned for a beautiful countryside venue surrounded by gardens and tall oak trees. We had invited nearly 100 guests. My parents had spent months helping us organize every detail. The flowers were arranged, the tables were decorated, and my wedding dress hung beside the window in the bridal suite. Everything looked perfect. At 8 that morning, Daniel sent me a message. "Today, I finally get to call you my wife. I love you." I read it at least 10 times. Around 10, my bridesmaids arrived. Music played while we did our makeup, opened a bottle of champagne, and took photographs. Everyone kept telling me how calm I looked. The truth was that I felt strangely nervous. It was not normal wedding anxiety. It was a heaviness in my chest that I could not explain. At 11:30, my maid of honor, Sophie, stepped out to answer a phone call. When she returned, her smile looked forced. "What happened?" I asked. "Nothing," she replied too quickly. "The photographer is just running a little late." I knew she was lying. A few minutes later, my mother entered the room. Her face was pale. "Emma," she said gently, "Daniel's best man can't find him." At first, I laughed. I thought it had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe Daniel had gone to pick something up. Maybe his phone had died. Maybe he was somewhere at the venue speaking with the coordinator. "He texted me this morning," I said. "He's probably nearby." But he was not nearby. His hotel room was empty. His suit was gone. His suitcase was gone. His car was missing from the parking lot. He had checked out before 10. The ceremony was supposed to begin at 1. By 12:30, guests were already arriving. I called Daniel again and again. Every call went directly to voicemail. I sent messages asking whether he was safe. I begged him to respond with a single word. Nothing. His best man, Marcus, looked almost as shocked as I felt. "He didn't say anything to me," Marcus insisted. "We had breakfast together." He seemed nervous, but I thought that was normal. "What exactly did he say?" I asked. Marcus hesitated. He asked whether I thought people could change their minds about the life they wanted. The room went silent. I felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath me. At 1:15, the wedding coordinator asked what we wanted to tell the guests. My father suggested announcing a delay, but I could see the truth spreading through the venue. People were whispering. Some were checking their phones. Others were staring toward the entrance, waiting for a groom who was not coming. At 2, I finally accepted it. Daniel had left me. I walked into the ceremony room wearing my wedding dress. Every guest turned toward me. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to stand at the front. "I'm sorry," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "There won't be a wedding today." Gasps moved through the room. "I don't know where Daniel is. I don't know why he left. I wish I could give you an explanation, but I don't have one." My mother began crying. My father stared at the empty doorway with anger in his eyes. I thanked everyone for coming and then returned to the bridal suite, where I locked the door and collapsed onto the floor. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. Daniel's parents claimed they had no idea where he had gone. His friends insisted he had never mentioned wanting to cancel the wedding. His employer confirmed that he had requested 2 weeks off for our honeymoon. It looked like he had vanished without warning. Then, 4 days after the wedding, I received an email. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." My hands shook as I opened it. Daniel wrote that he loved me but could not marry me. He said he had realized he was not ready for the responsibility of marriage and feared he would eventually disappoint me. He apologized for leaving without facing me, but claimed he had panicked. The email ended with one sentence that destroyed me. "Please don't try to find me." I stared at those words for hours. His explanation made no sense. Daniel had been the one who wanted a large wedding. He had chosen our honeymoon destination. 2 weeks earlier, he had been talking about buying a house and starting a family. People did not suddenly abandon everything because they were nervous. There had to be another reason. A week later, I went to our apartment to collect his remaining belongings. Most of his clothes were still there. His books remained on the shelves, and his coffee mug sat beside the sink. It felt like walking through the remains of a life that had ended overnight. While packing his desk, I found a receipt hidden inside a drawer. It was from a jewelry store in another city, dated 3 months earlier. The item was listed as a gold necklace. Daniel had never given me a gold necklace. I called the store and pretended I needed information for insurance. The employee refused to share customer details, but she mentioned that the necklace had been engraved. "With what?" I asked. After a pause, she read the words. "To Lily, my second chance." I nearly dropped the phone. I did not know anyone named Lily. When I searched Daniel's social media, I found nothing. Then I remembered an old photograph from his university days. A woman stood beside him with her arm around his waist. Her name was tagged, Lily Carter. After hours of searching, I found her public profile. She lived 3 hours away. Her latest photograph had been posted the morning of my wedding. It showed 2 coffee cups on a balcony. A man's hand rested beside one cup. He was wearing Daniel's watch. I sent Lily a message. "My name is Emma. I was supposed to marry Daniel last Saturday. I think you know where he is." She replied 20 minutes later. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know about the wedding." According to Lily, she and Daniel had dated during university. They separated after graduation because she moved overseas. 3 months before our wedding, she returned and contacted him. Daniel told her that he was single. He said he had never stopped loving her. They began meeting secretly. He bought her the necklace and promised they could start again. On the morning of our wedding, he arrived at her apartment with 2 suitcases. He told her he had ended a relationship but never admitted that he had abandoned his fiancé at the ceremony. When Lily saw my message, she confronted him. He tried to convince her that our engagement had already been over. She asked why there had been a wedding venue filled with guests. Daniel had no answer. Lily told him to leave. That evening, Daniel finally called me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Emma, I never meant for this to happen." I felt something inside me become completely still. "You planned it," I replied. "You lied to both of us for months." I was confused. "No. You were selfish." He began crying. He said seeing Lily again had brought back feelings he thought were gone. He claimed he tried to choose between us but could not. On the wedding morning, he panicked and drove to her. He said he was sorry for humiliating me. Then he asked whether we could meet. "For what?" I asked. "To talk about us." "There is no us." He begged me not to throw away 5 years because of one mistake. That was when I understood how little he respected me. Leaving me in a wedding dress in front of everyone was not one mistake. It was the final act in months of deception. Every time he kissed me, discussed our future, or told me he loved me, he was choosing to lie. You didn't disappear because you were afraid of marriage, I said. You disappeared because you thought another woman was waiting for you. Now that she knows the truth, you want to come back. He did not deny it. I ended the call. Daniel continued sending messages for weeks. He apologized, promised therapy, and claimed he had destroyed the best thing in his life. I blocked him everywhere. Healing was not quick. For months, I felt embarrassed whenever someone mentioned weddings. I avoided old photographs and stopped visiting places Daniel and I had loved. Some nights, I blamed myself for missing the warning signs. But slowly, I realized something important. His betrayal was not evidence that I was foolish or unlovable. It was evidence that he lacked the courage to be honest. A year later, I returned to the wedding venue with Sophie. We walked through the garden where the ceremony should have taken place. I expected to feel grief. Instead, I felt relief. Had Daniel appeared that day, I would have married a man who was already betraying me. I would have built a home on lies. His disappearance had broken my heart, but it had also saved me from a marriage that was never real. As we left the garden, Sophie squeezed my hand. You deserved better, she said. For the first time, I truly believed her. Daniel disappearing before the wedding once felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Now I understand that sometimes being abandoned is not the end of your story. Sometimes it is the moment your real life finally begins.